I offered to help pay for my younger brother's wedding. Then his fiancée excluded me from dinner, seated me with strangers, and said, "You're only a guest." I picked up my phone. "Then this guest is done paying." The argument over the wedding wasn't really where the problem began. It started years earlier, when helping my brother still felt like love instead of an obligation. Mason was 7 years younger than me, and I had always been protective of him. Our parents, Ralph and Beverly, worked hard, but money was tight enough that every unexpected expense affected the entire family. If the car needed repairs, we bought cheaper groceries. If the heating bill went up, we wore extra layers. School trips were called optional, but we understood that meant we shouldn't ask to go. By the time Mason started college, I had a stable income and enough savings to help without putting myself at risk. At first, it was small things: textbooks, groceries during finals, and a replacement laptop when his stopped working before an important project. He was always grateful. After I bought the laptop, he called me and said, "I seriously don't know what I would have done without you." I laughed and told him to stop being dramatic. Then he was accepted into a graduate program. The tuition was much higher than he expected, and the loans available to him had terrible interest rates. He called me from his car after meeting with someone from the financial office. His voice sounded empty. "I got in," he said, "but I can't afford to go." I remembered what it felt like to watch an opportunity disappear because there wasn't enough money. I didn't want that to happen to him. So I told him I would cover most of the tuition. He went quiet. Then he said, "Julia, that's too much." "You got accepted," I told him. "You're going." He tried to argue, but his voice broke. Eventually, he promised that he would pay me back one day. I said he didn't have to. At the time, I meant it. Mason finished the program, found a good job, and eventually met Chloe. She was polite when I first met her. A little reserved, but friendly. She came to family dinners, helped my mother clear the table, and listened patiently when Mason repeated stories the rest of us had already heard. Once, after dinner, she pulled me aside. "Mason talks about you like you saved his life," she said. "I just helped him through school. Most people wouldn't have done that." For a while, I thought she understood what my help meant. A few years later, Mason and Chloe found a house they loved. It was a modest 3-bedroom place with an old kitchen, a small yard, and enough room for the family they hoped to have someday. They both earned decent money, but student debt and other expenses had kept them from saving enough for the down payment. Mason called me late one evening. "I hate asking you this," he said. I knew what was coming before he explained it. They were short by about $31,000. They could have waited another year, chosen a smaller house, or continued renting, but they were afraid of losing the property. I had the money in savings, so I offered to cover the difference. Mason immediately said it would be a loan. I refused. I didn't want years of awkward conversations about payments. I wanted them to start their future without owing me. When I saw Chloe after the closing, she hugged me tightly. "You're changing our lives," she said. That sentence stayed with me because I believed she understood the difference between generosity and entitlement. A few months after moving into the house, Mason proposed. They wanted a large wedding at a renovated farmhouse venue with more than 100 guests, a full dinner, professional photography, elaborate flowers, and an open bar. Our parents offered what they could, but they were careful with every dollar. Chloe's parents agreed to pay for her dress and the rehearsal dinner, though they made it clear they couldn't cover much more. Eventually, Mason asked whether I could help. I should have said no. Instead, I agreed to contribute up to $25,000 toward the wedding. I also offered to pay for their honeymoon separately as my wedding gift. Mason hugged me. "You're unbelievable," he said. Chloe cried and thanked me. I paid the venue deposit, the photographer deposit, and part of the catering bill. Beyond that, I stayed out of the planning. I never asked to approve the flowers, food, music, or guest list. I was careful because I didn't want either of them to feel that my contribution gave me control over their wedding. Chloe chose her sisters and several friends as bridesmaids. Mason asked our cousin Wyatt to be his best man and included a few longtime friends as groomsmen. None of that bothered me. I didn't expect a role in the ceremony. Then they held an engagement party. During a short speech, Chloe thanked her parents and mine for making the wedding possible. She didn't mention me. It hurt more than I wanted to admit, but I immediately felt childish for caring. Helping family wasn't supposed to require applause. When guests congratulated both sets of parents for helping create the wedding, I stayed quiet. A few weeks later, Chloe sent me a copy of the seating chart and asked for my opinion before she finalized it. I opened the file and found my name near the back of the room. I had been seated with 3 of Mason's coworkers and 2 people I didn't know. Our parents were at the main family table with Chloe's parents and sisters. I called Mason. I think there's been a mistake with the seating chart. What mistake? I'm at the back with people I've never met. There was a pause. Chloe wanted the tables balanced, he said. Why wouldn't I sit with Mom and Dad? He sighed. Please don't make this a thing. That response bothered me more than the seat. I'm not making anything into a thing. I'm asking a normal question. He said Chloe had spent hours arranging the tables and was already overwhelmed. I understand that, I said. But I'm your sister. Julia, it's one dinner. Let it go. So I did. At least I tried to. Then I discovered that I wasn't invited to the rehearsal dinner. At first, I assumed the invitation had been delayed. Chloe's parents were hosting it, so I waited several days before asking Mason. His voice changed as soon as I mentioned it. It's mostly for the wedding party and immediate family, he said. I am immediate family. The restaurant has limited space. I asked whether our parents were invited. They were. Chloe's parents and sisters were attending, along with the wedding party. I asked who else would be there and Mason became defensive. Why are you interrogating me? I'm trying to understand why your sister isn't included in an immediate family dinner. He repeated that space was limited. I dropped it because I didn't want another argument. 2 weeks later, I was having coffee with my mother when she casually mentioned that Chloe's college roommate, Hannah, and Hannah's boyfriend, Logan, would be attending the rehearsal dinner. My mother stopped talking when she saw my expression. Hannah and Logan are invited? She looked uncomfortable. I assumed you knew. I called Mason when I got home. You told me the dinner was for immediate family and the wedding party. It mostly is. Hannah isn't in the wedding and Logan barely knows you. Mason went quiet. Then he said, Chloe feels like you've been too involved. I thought I had misheard him. Too involved in what? The wedding. Name one decision I've tried to control. He couldn't. I reminded him that I hadn't chosen the venue, menu, flowers, music, guest list, or even where I would sit. It's not always about what you say, he replied. What does that mean? He hesitated. Your money is hanging over everything. The money they had requested was now something I was apparently doing to them. Did I threaten to stop paying if I wasn't included? No. Did I demand to be in the wedding party? No. Did I ask Chloe to change anything? No, but you're proving my point by turning this into a huge issue. Instead of defending myself, I apologized. I told him I was sorry if my contribution had made Chloe feel watched or pressured. I promised to step back completely. His relief was immediate. That's all we're asking. For the next few days, I said nothing about the wedding. I accepted the seat at the back and stopped asking about the rehearsal dinner. Then Chloe called me. She didn't ask how I was doing. The florist needs the next payment by Friday, she said. I waited, thinking there might be more. There wasn't. How much? A little over 4,000. I stared at the wall in front of me. Can I ask you something honestly? Her voice tightened. Okay. Why is my involvement uncomfortable when I want to sit with my family, but acceptable when a vendor needs money? She went silent. Mason told me you felt pressured because I was paying for so much, I continued. I apologized and agreed to step back. 3 days later, you're asking for another payment. This is exactly what I was afraid of, she said. What were you afraid of? You're using the money to make the wedding about you. My face went hot. I'm not asking for a speech, a bridesmaid dress, or control over your choices. I'm asking why I'm good enough to pay but not good enough to be treated like family. Paying doesn't give you a special role. I never said it did. Then why are you so upset about a dinner and a seat? Because I'm Mason's sister. She let out a frustrated breath. You're only a guest. You need to accept that. For a moment, I wasn't angry. I felt strangely calm. Okay what? I picked up my phone. If I'm only a guest, I'll contribute what a guest normally contributes. She asked what I meant. I told her I would not be making the florist payment or covering the remaining wedding expenses. Her tone changed immediately. You can't do that. Why not? Because you promised. You just told me I'm only a guest. She accused me of twisting her words, but I wasn't asking for any money back. They would keep the venue deposit, the photographer deposit, and the catering payment I had already made. Altogether, I had spent a little over $14,000. The remaining $11,000 would stay in my account, and the honeymoon would no longer be my gift. Chloe called me cruel. No, I said. I'm finally being clear. Then I ended the call. Mason called less than 10 minutes later. He accused me of humiliating Chloe and sabotaging the wedding because I wasn't getting enough attention. I listened until he ran out of breath. Do you honestly believe that? I asked. You're punishing us because Chloe wouldn't kiss your feet. That sentence erased what little guilt I still had. I paid for your education. I helped you buy your house. I've already paid more than $14,000 toward this wedding. I never asked either of you to kiss my feet. You're keeping score now? No. I'm explaining why I'm done. Then he brought up something I hadn't expected. Months earlier, Mason and Chloe had told me that they might need fertility treatment. Chloe had a condition that could make pregnancy more difficult, and I had privately told Mason that I would help if the time came. Are you taking that away too? He asked. The question made me feel sick, not because I believed I owed them the money, but because he reached for the most emotional promise he could find and used it against me. Yes. He went silent. You promised. I also thought I was family. He hung up. The next few weeks were tense. Mason stopped speaking to me, and Chloe blocked me on social media. My mother called several times, asking me to reconsider because they had planned the wedding around the money I had promised. They can't replace it this quickly, she said. Then they need to reduce the cost. My father didn't tell me I was wrong, but he kept saying he wished everyone would calm down. I told him I was calm. For years, I had fixed Mason's problems before he had to face them. This time, I wasn't going to. When the remaining vendor balances came due, Mason and Chloe reduced the flower order, removed the open bar, canceled the hired transportation, and postponed their honeymoon. The wedding still happened. It was simply smaller than the version they had planned when they assumed I would cover every shortage. My mother begged me to attend. I didn't want to sit at the back while everyone pretended nothing had happened, but my parents were caught in the middle. I didn't want my absence to become the only thing the family remembered. So I went. At the venue, guests were directed toward a large seating board. My name was still at the table near the back. This time, it didn't hurt. The seat showed me exactly where I stood, and I was no longer trying to change it. The people at my table were kind. One woman complimented my dress, and another asked how I knew the couple. I'm the groom's sister. She glanced toward the family table, then back at me. She was polite enough not to ask the obvious question. When the ceremony began, Mason looked nervous but happy. Chloe looked beautiful. For a few minutes, I forgot everything and saw only my younger brother trying not to cry as his fiancée walked toward him. I still loved him. That was the hardest part. During the reception, Chloe thanked both sets of parents, the wedding party, and her friends. She didn't mention me. This time, I felt nothing. Later, the photographer gathered the immediate family for pictures. My mother noticed I hadn't been called and waved me over, but Chloe quietly spoke to the photographer. The group moved closer together. The picture was taken without me. My mother looked devastated. It's fine, I told her. No, it isn't. It's clear. Mason passed my table later that evening. For a second, I thought he might stop. He looked directly at me, then turned away. I had brought them a normal gift from their registry, a set of cookware they had requested. I placed the card on the gift table and left before the final dance. I cried in the parking lot. Not because I regretted withdrawing the money. I cried because I finally understood that Mason and I had not experienced our relationship in the same way. I thought I had been helping my little brother build a life. He had started seeing my help as part of the structure holding that life together. A structure wasn't invited to dinner or thanked in a speech. It was simply expected to remain standing. The next morning, Mason sent me one message. I hope you're happy. I didn't answer. For several months, we barely spoke. My mother tried to keep me updated, but every conversation eventually became a list of Mason and Chloe's financial problems. Their property taxes had increased. A plumbing issue damaged part of the kitchen ceiling. They still had credit card debt from the wedding. Each time, she paused as though waiting for me to offer help. I didn't. Then Mason finally called. He didn't apologize. He explained that they were short on their mortgage payment because of the property tax increase and asked whether I could help temporarily. I asked how much he needed. He told me. No. There was a long silence. You're seriously going to let us struggle over this? You both work. You own a house. You need to adjust your budget. You know we're already under pressure. Then cut expenses, sell something, or take on more work. You need to handle this yourselves. You don't even sound like yourself. You're right. I don't. He ended the call. Several weeks later, he sent me a photo of a fertility clinic estimate. There was no greeting or explanation, just the amount. I stared at it for several minutes before replying. I hope everything goes well, but I won't be paying for this. His answer came almost immediately. You've become cold. I left the message unanswered. My parents believed the fertility treatment changed the situation. My mother came to my house and sat at the kitchen table, twisting her hands together. A future child shouldn't be punished because you're angry at Mason. No child is being punished. Mason and Chloe are adults making financial decisions for themselves. You told him you would help. I said that before I understood what our relationship had become. Her face fell. He's still your brother. Then he should treat me like his sister. My father approached it differently. He said I had every right to stop paying, but he hoped I would leave the emotional door open. I agreed with that. I didn't want Mason to fail. I didn't want him and Chloe to lose their house or give up on having a family. I wanted them to build a life they could afford without treating me like an emergency fund. I also had to admit something uncomfortable about myself. I liked being needed. When I paid for Mason's education, I became the sister who made his future possible. When I helped with the house, I became the person who changed his life. Each rescue made me feel useful. I had spent years saying I gave without expecting anything in return, but that wasn't completely true. I didn't expect repayment or control. I did expect love, respect, and a place in my brother's life. Maybe that made my generosity less selfless than I wanted to believe. Still, wanting to be appreciated wasn't the same as buying influence. I had never threatened to withdraw support until Chloe told me I was only a guest. Even then, I didn't reclaim anything I had already given. I simply stopped giving more. 2 months after sending the clinic estimate, Mason called again. This time, he didn't ask for money. He asked if we could meet. We sat in a small coffee shop near my house. He looked tired, and neither of us knew how to begin. Finally, he said, "Chloe thinks you hate her." "I don't hate her." He nodded. "Do you hate me?" I looked at him for a long time. "No. But I don't trust you with my generosity anymore." He flinched. "You didn't just let Chloe exclude me. You defended it. You told me I was creating problems. Then when I stopped paying, you acted like I had stolen from you." He stared at his coffee. I felt trapped. By what? Chloe felt embarrassed about how much you'd done for us. She thought people saw us as dependent. So the solution was to hide me? No. I kept avoiding arguments, and every time I avoided one, I made the next one worse. It was the first honest thing he had said to me in months. He admitted that he knew I should have been invited to the rehearsal dinner. The seating arrangement had also been intentional. Chloe didn't want people to assume I was paying for the wedding. Why? I asked. Pride. I let that answer sit between us. Why didn't pride stop either of you from accepting the money? He had no answer. Eventually, he said, "I'm sorry." There was no dramatic breakdown. He didn't beg for forgiveness. He just looked ashamed. I told him I appreciated the apology, but nothing financial was changing. He nodded. I figured. I also told him that I would not discuss money with him for at least a year. There would be no loans, special gifts, or emergency payments unless someone's actual safety was involved. He said he understood. Before we left, he asked whether I wanted to come over for dinner sometime. Not yet. That was 3 months ago. We speak occasionally now. The calls are short, but they're no longer hostile. Sometimes he sends me pictures of the dog or asks how our parents are doing. He and Chloe have started cutting expenses. They sold one of their cars and postponed treatment while they save. My mother thinks that is tragic. I think it is adulthood. Chloe has never apologized directly. She sent me a brief message saying she hoped we could move forward someday. I replied, maybe. But not by pretending nothing happened. She didn't respond. I recently used part of the money I had set aside for their honeymoon and fertility treatment to take my parents on a quiet trip they had talked about for years. Mason found out and didn't complain. That mattered more than I expected. There was no public victory and no moment when everyone admitted I was right. There was only a boundary I should have created years earlier. I still love my brother, and I hope he and Chloe build the family they want. But I am no longer the person they call whenever life costs more than they expected. Maybe withdrawing the money made me cruel. Maybe promising it created expectations I had no right to break. Or maybe being treated like family should never depend on whether my bank account is open. Was I wrong for withdrawing all future financial help after my brother's fiancée told me I was only a guest at the wedding I was helping pay for?